going to have a couple people here in person at the office. And one of the young ladies here actually wants some help writing an offer. So we're going to kind of walk through that with her.
Fantastic. Love it. All right. And Kelly, you're going out a little. You also do a little bit of muting around.
Did you say that you couldn't hear me? I couldn't pick up what you said.
Yeah, I can hear you better now. And we've started the recording too. And I think we have about 11 people online. So we're ready whenever you are, my dear.
Yeah, I'm just getting a really strong delay, it seems.
I know I had trouble there with internet last week. Maybe that's part of it. We'll do the best we can. That's all we can do. So we'll record it and everybody can at least kind of watch you go through the motions of writing a contract as well. So this will be good. Thank you for hosting.
No problem. I think it's coming. It's just slow. So I'm just getting into where the documents are so we can start on the offer to purchase. What my thought was when we said writing contract to win had to do with all these multiple offers that we've been seeing across. Zip forms. That's what I'm doing, is just opening up. It just seems real slow for some reason. So writing a multiple offer, I have a few pet peeves as a listing agent, and I don't know if Tina, if you're going to be on here, but I'm sure you have some as well. Where are my documents? Is Tina there today?
She's working from home this morning. She is on, but I'm not sure if she's available to talk a ton on the call this morning.
All right, well, I think it's finally coming up here. So whenever, as a listing agent, on the buyer's agent's part, which really frustrates me because I feel that they're not doing the best for their buyer, and their buyer may have a great offer and their buyer may really want the house, but if they're not conveying that to me, the listing agent, I can't help them in any way. So I consider that somewhat of a blind offer when someone just shoots an email over, doesn't call me, doesn't text me, doesn't give me any information on their buyers. But let's start with the contract, and then we'll talk about why I feel like separate parts of this contract you should fill in a particular way. So the first part, of course, is very basic, just their names and the address information. And hopefully those of you that have not seen it are going to notice that on the MLS, we now have a new tax data link. It is to replace Realist. Realist link is still there. I don't know how long that will be good for, but that's where we go to get this information. I would click over to it, but since the internet's so slow, I think that would just really bog us down. So let's just click down to where we're talking about actually writing the offer and the terms. This is where I like to start with a conversation with my clients about how important getting this house is. If you're in multiple offer situation, I want to make sure to explain to them how the multiple offer is going to work from the seller's side. They think they can just put an offer out, and whatever that offer number is, that they're going to get a counter offer. That's what they typically expect. So I like to outline it first with how important this house is to them. So let's just assume it's a $225,000 list price. And let's assume for the moment that the last one sold at $220,000. So it's $5,000 higher already than the most recent comparable sale. And my clients really love it. There's something about it. Let's just say that the in-laws live in the neighborhood and they need that closeness and proximity for their dream of walking the kids to grandma and grandpa's and getting that babysitting use, right? So this home is important to them on a level that's beyond the value of the home. It is an integral part of where they want to be. So with that said, I'm going to say something to them like, okay, the last one sold for $220,000. This one's listed at $225,000, and we already know they have multiple offers coming in. There's no offers in yet. So we could be the first one. We could be the only one, because we don't know, just because that agent has been told other offers are coming in, that other offers are actually coming in. With that in mind, we have to go into it with the mindset that there are going to be other offers and that your first impression may be the only impression that you get to make. So with that said, I'm going to ask my clients some really basic questions. I already know what their loan parameters are. I already know what they're qualified for, but what I want to know is, if someone swooped in and bought this house for $226, are you going to be sad? If someone bought it for $230, are you going to be sad? Like, at what point is it okay if it's just $100 more that someone else bought this house from you? I need to know that number from my clients in order to know what their risk level is as far as how much they're willing to put forth before they're willing to walk away. What I don't want is, I don't want them to lose the house and be upset with me. I want them to have all the tools that they have to be able to make the decision on the price they want to go in at. So on a house at $225, chances are you're going to get offers up to $230 pretty easily. And it may or may not appraise more than $225, right? We don't know for sure. So there's some risk involved. So I have this conversation about, if you go $230 and you're putting 20% down, if it only appraises for $225, are you comfortable bringing that extra $5? Or would you prefer to let the house go and look for the next one, knowing that the market's been continually going up, that the next one will probably be listed at $230 and we might be at $235. And that's the market we're in. And making sure they understand that it's not controlled by us as agents is really important. A lot of times, unfortunately, our clients lose an offer before they're able to put that best foot forward and see that spending an extra $2,000, $3,000, or $5,000 is going to make the difference between them being where they want to be and not getting a house at all right now. Can we agree on that? I mean, the inventory is slim. So with that in mind, I'm going to say this client said, Kelly, we're retiring. We want to be close to those kids. So we're absolutely willing to go to 5,000 over asking, right? So that's the first thing. Great. My clients want to go in 5,000 over asking, which is 10,000 over the last appraisal. They're comfortable if anything goes wrong with the appraisal. That's awesome. So we're going to enter that as $230,000 for their purchase price. And we're really good about that, right? Because we know for a fact we're offering at least 5,000 more. All right, now the next thing I want to talk about is their due diligence. Due diligence comes down solely to how the buyer feels about their own buying power. This is their opportunity to tell that seller, I have the best job. I've been there for 10 years. I make way more than is necessary for this house. It's their opportunity to say, I have seen your house. It's in XY condition. If it's in really good condition, then I would encourage my client to go very high in due diligence. Why would I do that? I would do that because this is their opportunity to put their down payment forward to say, there's almost nothing that would keep me from buying your house. There's almost nothing that would keep me from, have me walk away from that due diligence amount, right? Because as a seller, when I'm sitting here and I'm presenting 3 or 4 offers, and one offer has 500 in due diligence and is list price, and one offer is 3,000 over list price, but has 2,000 in due diligence. Right now, right? Just those two examples, 500 and 2,000 in due diligence. Which one is telling me we have really good financing? We are confident in our buying power. Like, we know we're going to buy this house. We're not just throwing 2,000. And then you got my client that's going to come in, and they're going to ask me what to do. And I'm going to look at them. I'm going to say, unless the HVAC is old, we've looked at the crawl space, it's dry. We've looked at the appliances. We've looked at the ceilings. There's no signs of water stains. I've been doing this a long time. In my experience, there's no visual red flags that we reasonably missed. So I'm going to say, how much you're putting down? They're going to say 20%. I'm going to say, I think you need to do $5,000 in due diligence. And they're going to be, oh my gosh, why? Because it's gone, right? The moment your contract's accepted, that due diligence is gone. But why am I telling them to do that? I'm telling them to do that because it's a lot of money, and it's telling that seller, I want your house. I want it so bad that unless you have $10,000 in repairs, I'm going to buy it. Like, you can have 5,000 repairs and you're not going to do anything for me because I know I'm going to lose it either way. So think of the confidence that gives that seller at every number that you consider for due diligence. Now imagine you came to me with a $500 due diligence. What am I going to think about that buyer? They're not very serious. They're not putting any skin in the game, right? So even on an offer that you're not competing, 500 is really ridiculous to take a home off the market for 3 weeks, right? So this due diligence to me is really important. I'm going to go ahead and put a $5,000 on there, and just know that's really high, right? Has anybody in here done this? Yeah? Did you win? Did you win the deal? You won the deal. All right. Yeah, have you written an offer with high due diligence? And did you get the deal? Was it multiple offers? Yes, that's awesome. So 9 times out of 10 as a listing agent, though, we get more than 3 offers. At least one has $500 in due diligence.
Hey, Kelly.
Yeah?
What happens if the HVAC unit is extremely old and will have to be replaced?
So this is that's a great one. So I just put one under contract last week, 5,000 due diligence, multiple offers. The listing agent had one of the buyers. You know, that's even harder, right? The home was in perfect shape. And what happened? The HVAC system is making this noise that's reverberating through the house, through the walls, to where you literally cannot use the master bedroom. You cannot use the master bathroom, I'm sorry, because it's such a loud echo. It sounds like you stepped into the Liberty Bell while it was ringing. It's the most crazy thing I've ever seen, right? So here I am, all this experience. I've given them all this advice. They won the house. The inspections went great, except for this one weird anomaly. And I had to have that conversation with them. Is the seller going to fix it? Not likely. We can ask, but not likely that they're going to fix it, because you've just given them the money. And if you walk away, they're going to use your money to fix it for the next person. And they probably have a backup offer. And if they don't, they're just going to put it on the market and get 3 other offers. So again, even if you didn't put down that due diligence, wouldn't you still have wanted the house? Is the air conditioner working right now? Because these are not new homes, right? We've looked at the age. We know what the risks are. So chances are they probably wouldn't do anything. In my case, we actually are lucky. They're going to give us $2,500 of the $3,000 we asked for to have the system completely uninstalled and reinstalled correctly so that it is not doing that. But that's not always going to happen. And I was very sure to set that expectation with that buyer in the beginning. And even though I said it, they were still shocked. They were still frustrated. They were still slightly irritated, I'll say, you know, because it's a whirlwind for a buyer. They don't do this every day. Sometimes you have to repeat yourself 3 or 4 times for them to really understand about how the process works. So just never be afraid to just keep explaining it and using those kid gloves and making sure that they're understanding all the risks that are involved. I don't usually know about you guys, but as far as initial earnest money or additional earnest money, I generally base that which one it's going to be based on my schedule, because to me it's a lot of work to come up with another check in 3 weeks and remember to get it there by 5 o'clock. So I like to do the initial earnest money just to make it easier on me. I also like the buyer to feel wed to the deal. I want them to be committed. I don't want a buyer that's going to just walk away over anything. I want them to be committed. I want the seller to be committed. I want us to all work through to a closing, not people just throw their hands in the air and walk away. That's another reason that you want your buyer to do good due diligence, because the less they have in it, the more likely they're going to walk away over something silly. And there's not a deal out there that doesn't have things that need to be done. So they're going to run into similar situations every sale. Assumption, we never really use anything with that. Seller financing, we never use that. And building deposit is also rare, because usually builders want us to use their deposits. So the next ones, I'm going to go ahead and do some earnest money here of another 5,000. Remember, my client's putting down 20%, so that's still less than half of what they're putting down. And I'm going to do that in the beginning with a personal check. And again, that's just to make my life and their life easier, especially with COVID. Trying to get somebody to go to the bank and get a cashier's check right now is a real hassle. So I definitely would do that. And then I highly recommend that you never, ever, ever leave a blank on a contract. You always need to fill it in. And you'll notice that some of these programs, if it's not a number, you have to put a space before you can type. So space, and then I can say these are not applicable for this transaction. It does not mess with the math in the system, so that's really good. I can't speak for dot loops, so you might want to just watch that. Let's go back down here to the escrow agent. For me, I've used the same closing attorney for most of my career. There's a benefit to that. Sometimes it's a hassle. And in fact, right now I've got clients closing in Pittsburgh, and I have asked them to drive to Raleigh for the closing. But let's talk about what benefit it is as an agent to build a relationship with a closing attorney. I cannot tell you the numerous problems that can come up at the 11th hour when you're with the attorney or right before you get there. And having a relationship with the closing paralegal and that closing attorney can make or break your closing days every single time you have a closing. Because they are going to, just like you do, have to look at their email. They're going to have to pick and choose who they're going to help first. They're going to have to prioritize. They're going to do that based on your relationship and what they have next. But 9 times out of 10, if your relationship is superior to the other people, you're going to get pushed to the top. Your clients are going to record sooner. Little things that, you know, maybe you have a closing attorney that does not take a check. But for you, under $500, if there's a problem, they'll take a check at the closing table. There's a lot of benefits with the trust that you can build with your vendors. I definitely encourage you to make your list of vendors, meet with your vendors, build that relationship with your vendors, because it will pay off in the end over and over. So I always go with Harrison Hilton. That's a local one here in Raleigh. And then I put the paralegal's name to receive the check. Off to the right. And if you, for those of you that don't know, you can now wire your funds to most attorneys for your additional due diligence, or earnest money. So that's also a way that you could avoid the check situation during COVID if you'd like. You have to contact the attorney where the funds are going to be held, get their wiring instructions. It cannot be an ACH wire, it has to be an actual bank wire, but it's very safe. And then the attorney receives the funds and sends you the document and you haven't left your house. So there's definitely a benefit in keeping that in mind. Yes?
Do you work with McGivney and all? I had a client that worked for them. They have an app.
Oh, and an attorney that has an app for that. That's awesome.
Like scan in a check.
Wow.
And your client can do it directly to them.
What's the name of the company?
Man McGivney and
Man McGivney. Huh?
Chris Mann.
Chris Mann? Okay, so apparently there's an attorney that you guys know that has an app where you can upload your checks to a picture on your phone. That's awesome. That's really awesome.
And it was very secure. I'm not sure how it happened, so I was.
No, I mean, that's incredible. That's incredible. So then let's talk about the due diligence date, because again, we're in a multiple offer situation. So as the seller, how long do I want your due diligence to be? Like, I don't want to give you any time if I get a choice, right? But I'm getting a loan. So realistically, I need to contact my buyer's lender. I'm getting ready to go under contract. I need to make that call. Hey, if I have a contract, a signed, ratified contract in your hands, if you think it's going to be Monday or Tuesday, whatever, on this day, when can you comfortably close? When can you comfortably tell me the appraisal can be done? Because what you don't want to do is throw dates on here and find out after you get the offer that from day one, you have undercut what they need time to do. You need to make sure your buyer understands the loan process is the longest part of the process. It has to start first. It will finish last, right? So we need to get them that contract right away and make sure the dates that they give us to get it done are what we put in the contract. So today is August 23rd, it's 5th, my watch is wrong, right? 5th, 6th. Anyone? It's 26. Okay, so 26. So then I would say I want 3 weeks. So the 2nd would be 1 week, and then the 9th, and then the 16th. So this would be 3 weeks for due diligence, 21 days. That's what I would always give unless my lender says they need more. Then we're going to talk about the closing date. Keeping in mind, again, the seller usually wants to close quickly, but not always. So I would always put in a quick closing date, whatever the lender could do, usually 7 to 10 days after the appraisal is completed. And then I would add in my letter that we're going to talk about in a little bit, that my buyers are flexible with the closing date. Please let us know if we can make the closing date more appealing for you, right? Because again, that's something that the buyer can give the seller that's not costing them any money and could really make the difference for their situation on their side. So I can't tell you how much they appreciate that flexibility.
Where do you write that?
So we're gonna talk about what I do when I send an offer to somebody, but it's part of my letter. So I do a love letter from my clients where I have them write something about the house. I have them send it to me. I have them send me a picture, and then I put it together in a little love letter with like a picture of the house or something like that. And then I also do a love letter on my email with all the attachments. And that's where I'm telling them how great my client is, how long I've worked with them, how much I've enjoyed them, how easy they are to work with, how I know they're going to be so excited if they get this house and be just wonderful buyers to communicate with. Like, these are things that every listing agent wants to know, right? I want to know they're going to be low maintenance, they're not going to bother me, they're going to zoom in, buy the house, zoom out with very little headaches. So I, as an agent, am going to be like, they're using the lender I've known for 17 years. I've worked with this family on 6 transactions. They have always come through and been very reasonable. Whatever you can say is going to convey your confidence that your buyer is solid. That's going to come through to the agent. And your letter to the agent is introducing you. I always say something like, you know, we've not met before, we haven't done a transaction, but if you ask around, like, I really try hard to make sure my reputation is very positive, that I want to work with you. And I just kind of add, like, please, you know, ask around, look at my sales, like, especially if it's contingent on a home that's going to close. Like, I don't have stuff that just falls out. I just make sure they know that you've covered all your bases, right? This is your one time to make the best impression to that agent, and that agent is definitely going to help make that decision. Don't ever think for a second the seller is going to make that final decision. The agent is going to present it in the best light that they think is best for their client. You need to be that best light. If they're strong, well, that's what I'm saying. I want you to be a strong agent.
I'm saying that.
Oh, if the listing agent is a strong agent. Well, that's also why I write the letter, right? Because you've got really weak agents. They're going to get those offers and hit forward, forward, forward. And I say weak because they've not done their job. They've not helped their client. All they've done is say, here's your stuff. Let me know what you want to do. That's not what we're here for. I put my stuff in a spreadsheet. I'm going to have offer A, offer B, offer C. Here's their offer prices. Here's their due diligence request. Here's their dates. And I put it all in a spreadsheet and I highlight the one I think is the one we need to go with and why. And then I send that to them, right? I don't want to have a conversation with them on the phone until they can see what I see. Otherwise, I'm just wasting time spinning my wheels. They need to see the data. So we're going to go and do a closing date of 2 weeks after. We'll do the 30th. Now let's look at the 30th. It's a Wednesday, so that's good. I don't like to do a lot of closings on a Friday. Yes?
When you make your due diligence date, having such a good relationship with your vendors help you to maybe understand and know where they're going to be at on their timeline? Because, you know, that's such
Are you talking about the lender specifically?
Well, you know, your inspectors, you know, all of those, you know, pest inspectors, home inspectors, all of that, because I do business in Solon County and they're so backed up, you know, so 3 weeks is always when I go to it, you know, now it's easing up, you know, but, you know, when all of this hit and who knows if he's not, you know, you got it again, you know, you don't want to put them in a position where they haven't had all of their inspections. So how do you,
So my timing is this: whenever I have someone, and you usually know that you're close to writing an offer, right? So at the same time that I'm doing that, I'm also, and the only person I have difficulty with is my home inspector, the HVAC company, the termite company, the radon. They can all do it within 3 days, so they're never my issue. I always reach out to my home inspector and just say, I'm getting ready to put something under contract. When is your first available? Like, I want to know before we go under contract, what are we looking at? Because if he's 3 weeks out, I know I have to either find somebody else or I've got to adjust these dates. Most likely I'm gonna have to find someone else, sad to say. I cannot wait for that. You know, generally if I go under contract 1 week, inspections are the next week without a doubt. I want to get all that stress off the table and behind us and just be waiting on the loan. That's my goal. Now there's a few exceptions, right? If there's a concern with the appraisal, you're not in a multiple offer situation and you think you might have overpaid and you're not sure if the clients want to spend any more money on inspections until we get over that hurdle, that would be a reason to maybe put it off. I also delay my survey until after due diligence because it's the only thing that survives due diligence. So why am I going to pay $400, $500, $600 as a client before I know for sure we're going to close? So there's definitely some things that I would space out just to make it lower risk for the buyer. But again, at the same time, I don't want to drag it out so long that it's easy for a buyer to always terminate because that's not what we're doing either, right? So I had a lender ask me last week, can I go ahead and order the appraisal? I said, yes, absolutely. I emailed it back. That was last Wednesday or Thursday. Yesterday, I met that client at the house for the HVAC problem and found out he halted the appraisal, to which I said, if we're late on closing, I just need to say, I put it out there. It needed to be done. You cannot have the lending stop for the inspections or the inspections stop for the lending because you both have to get there at the end. And if one of you stops, you're not going to make it. And then it's going to be on the on the buyer's side. It's their fault. So you can slow them down, but just be cautious that if you go past your days, you've created the issue. I like to get them the appraisal right away. That's $400 they've spent right from day one, plus their due diligence. So from that point forward, I usually go ahead and order I order the HVAC, the termite, the radon, and the home inspection. Those are my 4 core that I order every time, right at the beginning. You're welcome. So I'm going to do September 30th. I was looking at the closing date. So it can be kind of stressful to close on the last day of the month, and even more stressful if it's a Friday and something goes wrong and your clients are left without a place to stay over the weekend. So I definitely caution you when you're looking at these dates, even though it seems like Friday is the day you probably want to go to, back it up a day, maybe Thursday. That way if there's a problem, they're still closing this week. That way if there's a problem, they can still get in their home over the weekend. The worst situations I've seen is you've got a closing on a Friday that doesn't happen and they've got family in town to help them move and they've got their stuff on a truck and it's really stressful. So look at the calendar. Don't just go by the dates and talk to them to say, like, Wednesday. Is Wednesday a good day to do that? You're going to be out of your home on the night before probably, have all your stuff in a truck, come to closing on the morning of the 30th. And then if you use the attorney that you're used to using, hopefully they can record by noon and get your clients the keys really quick. But what if you're using an attorney that's backed up? Or what if there's a problem, they're not getting their keys till 5? Do you have a plan in place? Always have a backup plan in place. Make sure your clients know where they stand with their truck and with their movers.
Do you put that in their head, like you have a backup plan just in case the closing is delayed?
No, and in fact, what I do is I do it myself. So we'll have a closing coming up. And I knew that my clients were setting up their movers for the day of closing. And I said, our closing's at 8 a.m., the buyer's closing's at 11. So noon is the earliest both of them could record, because you got record, fund, record, right? So it's not likely. But what did I do? I went to the builder now. So where they're buying, which is, I don't know if you guys know this, it's extremely unusual for any builder to allow you access before closing. It's almost unheard of. But I went to them and I said, you know, here's the approval letter. We're past all this. On the day of closing, we're going to go in, we're going to give you all this money. And I wrote the numbers, like, this is how much you're going to have deposited. This is what time the buyers are coming at 11. This is how much is coming from their sale, which already closed. Like, I'm giving them all the confidence financially that they need. And then I'm asking the question, can we please have the keys at noon instead of 5 o'clock on the day of closing? Otherwise, they're going to have to push it another day because the movers will not be able to start at 5, right? So it took like 3 days to get an answer back, and they said yes. And then I was cheerleader. I mean, I was like a hero for my clients, right? Because they didn't even know that was possible. So when the backup plan doesn't have to be them; it can be you. Just make sure that you're thinking ahead and listening to what they're saying about their scheduling. And if you don't want to mess with that, just make sure you always tell them you're probably not going to be moving into your house on the day of closing. That's going to be the day after. At least set that expectation, because it's really disappointing to work so hard to get to the very end and have them upset on the last day when you could have prevented it. It's heartbreaking, honestly, because that's the impression that you're leaving them with. The closing day is really important to leave them with, I'm so glad you're happy, I love the home, I'm going to check in with you. I can't really hug anymore, but you know, that real positive feeling of we made it, I'm so excited for you, can't wait to come see you in your new house feeling. There's nothing worse than, all right, well, go back to your hotel and I'll let you know whenever things get worked out. That's really hard on people. Let's see what's next in our contract here. All right. Items leased or owned and items that do not convey. Items leased and not owned is usually something to do with like a propane tank, something that appears to be staying with the property, and maybe if you haven't been doing it very long, you realize, oh, it's not staying. Like some play sets are permanently fixed to their ground, others are not. What's another thing that could be leased besides a propane tank? Not really. There we go. Antennas, satellite dishes, receivers, appliances, alarm, security systems, anything like that. I don't know about you guys. I don't have very much. I hardly ever have anything in that line. That's going to be pretty unusual. The next one, though, I do often have things that do not convey. So, you know, you see a little note in one of the rooms that said the chandelier was given to the seller by their grandparents. They want to take it with them, that type of thing. If they've got some really nice outdoor setup that's not permanently affixed, maybe a pergola, and they think they're going to take it with them, like usually this listing agent's really good about giving you those key features, but this is where you would put it to say our offer is not including these things. Personal property. It's really, really hard to put a lot of personal property in a contract because lenders don't like to see it. So we've got several options. Like, let's say they want the refrigerator, washer, and dryer. I recommend you follow that with at no value. What does that mean to your buyer? Because it's important they understand what that means. You're buying a used appliance, you're not testing it, you're not inspecting it, you're just getting whatever it is on the day of closing. It's kind of like a freebie, right? What you don't want is for them to think they're getting a brand new appliance, and here they've written it in. The lender's not going to give a penny towards whatever is written in here. They're not going to value that personal property. It is not part of the loan. In terms of the value. So a refrigerator, a washer, a dryer, I don't know, whatever else that they want to leave that's personal, you can put it there and you need to put at no value. And don't be shocked if some lenders don't even want it there at all, in which case you might want to do a separate promissory note, even if it's just with the closing of the sale, we will leave these items to cover yourself. You can pull it out of the contract, and we often have furniture and stuff that's sold at sale too, and we do those separately as well. Try to keep a little separation between that personal property. Let's scroll forward. Buyer representation. So for those of you that are new, this is very redundant section of the contract, in my opinion. It used to be that this was a section that our buyer would use, and if for any reason after we were under contract, if they didn't want the house, we would run to this section and go, okay, it says that you're approved for $200,000 and the house is $250,000, so we could maybe use that to get out, or we could call the lender and say, hey, he lost his job. There's a lot of ways that we could have used this little section as a way to terminate the contracts, which is no longer a possibility. Right now, everything goes through due diligence. Now you just change your mind. You don't have to have a reason. You used to have a reason before. So this section is really just informative. It's not anything that the buyer's being held to. So if they put they're getting an FHA loan, that's the one thing would have to be signed by a seller, right? So if you're in a multiple offer situation, there's 2 loan types you do not want to go into a multiple offer situation with. Does everybody know what those 2 loan types are?
VA and
VA and FHA. Does everybody know why? It's very hard to compete as a buyer with a VA loan or an FHA loan because those appraisal requirements are tighter. So it's less likely, or more likely it won't appraise, or less likely that you're going to not have an appraisal issue. If you're going to have an appraisal issue, it's usually a VA or an FHA is what I'm trying to spit out, right? Whereas a conventional, they're a little looser. And frequently you don't see those have problems like you see a VA or an FHA.
So this market, I'm just curious, I just got the phone with a guy who
Yes.
just got out of the military and started grad school at Duke. He's going to use a VA loan. So would you say that?
It just makes it harder for the multiple offer situation. I don't know of any seller that would turn down any kind of loan. If they're going to show up with the money, they're going to show up with the money. But when you're competing, I would look for an alternative way to present the loan. That's what I would do, unless it was FHA, unless they have to sign for it. If they have to sign for it, then you're really up against the wall because you can't go in and say we're going to pay cash and then after you get the offer go, oh, could you sign this? We're going to switch to a loan. No, that's not cool. You can't do that because the seller did not agree to that. And they're not likely to change their mind because I've had that happen where someone tried to pull that on me and I'm like, hey, we accepted your offer because you were cash. We are not, if you're not cash, we're going to the other people. Right? So that can create an issue, definitely. But on the flip side, if you're doing a loan and they have the ability to do cash, that's what you need to tell the seller's agent. You tell them they're doing cash. You show up with your loan, but you win the offer by proving you have the cash to close.
What she's trying to say, maybe getting confused because you said it two different ways, only FHA, VA require that form, right? Conventional loans don't require a form that seller has to sign to get you through the loan process. So, but if you can hide that ball because your people are qualified to buy without selling or not have to, take a loan, anything that you can hide because they can do it. They don't want to do it, but they can do it. They do not lie and don't anything unethical. In the background, you can put up what you want to and get it done.
why would you say we're going to need to make an offer with conventional loan and then have a little side note say we have the ability to take cash?
We do the opposite. Because if I have multiple offers and they're all the same and one of them can go cash, you just reduce my risk significantly, right?
Yeah.
Even if you come to the table with a loan, I don't care. My risk was lower because if you fell out, you still had the cash to close. Whereas these other people, if the loan falls out, they're out. I'm starting over. So my risk remains the same. So just because someone doesn't want to pay cash in a multiple offer situation, I would still encourage them to use the cash image, right? We would just want like a bank statement with their number or whatever to say my client has the ability to pay cash, because you're not really telling them what they're doing. You're just saying my client has the ability and they want this house. Then you get that contract and you send it to the lender. You still go through the same process. And you've not done anything.
They say, look, oh, you can close in 2 weeks. The house is empty. And I'm like, no, my client has some business trips. You can't do for 28 days.
Mhm, mhm.
I have a question about that though. So what if there's a scenario where they have a conventional loan, during the process they were to lose their job, therefore they're not able to get the loan, however they do have the cash? Is it because we may be listing agent and the seller aware of that? Do they enforce that to get them to close using the cash?
No, they can't enforce that. Just because you have it, they can't force you to use it. It's up, yeah, you're the one that is going to decide what they're going to walk or.
It's always the buyer, so you lose this deposit and then lose that deposit. Nobody's forcing them to do anything. It's just a leverage of what deposits is your buyer will walk away from until what point the transaction back.
Anybody have any questions about that? So just to fill this out for these purposes though, I'm going to say that this client does intend to get a new loan. It is not FHA or VA, so I'm going to check conventional. It's not any other kind of a down payment assistance program. It is going to be a fixed rate and the principal amount of, let's say, $165,000 for a 30-year term, not to exceed 3.5%. So everybody knows, I don't know if anybody knows this, but the lowest rate I've seen for a fixed 30-year right now is 2.375, which is unbelievable to me. It's like free money, right?
I've only seen that on 15.
I've only seen it on 1 30-year. Yeah, but I mean, I'm frequently seeing it at or under 3. So I feel like that's pretty common in the market. And I believe that VA right now still has no limits. And you can buy any price home with a VA at 100% financing, which is insane.
No
right? Because I think I heard Sharon or someone talking about $1 million property that someone made an offer on, 100% financing. Because shockingly, a 2 point whatever % interest rate makes that payment like half what it would have been just 5 years ago. It's crazy how much interest rates have dropped these costs. All right, so we've got that stuff filled in, but just to say again, none of this affects us. If my client doesn't want to get this loan, if my client no longer qualifies for this loan and wants to go another route, this does not enforce anything. It's just informational that we're passing on to the listing agent. So this is new. I don't know how many of you have seen this, but the section about having a property that's under contract, that's contingent on the closing of that property, has been completely removed and changed. So now it's nothing more than just a disclosure. So if I make this offer contingent, in my mind, on their closing, it's actually not. It's just letting the seller know, I have a house that's going to close. If it doesn't close, I'm going to lose everything. Like, I'm going to lose the money I gave you. I'm going to lose my inspection money. I'm going to lose every penny I've spent. And the seller's going to get to keep their due diligence money, and the seller's going to get to keep their earnest money, which before they didn't get to do. Before they only got the due diligence, but they would get the earnest money back, which left the seller in a pinch at the 11th hour when it didn't close. Does everybody understand that? Was I convoluted?
Say that again.
So it's-
or giving you one more.
When we have the addendum,
Yeah.
the contingent sale addendum, if somebody would ever accept that, I haven't accepted one of these, but if you would accept that form, it said in there, if the buyer failed to sell their home and close, and the whole thing fell apart because of it, they can still get their earnest money
Okay.
refunded. That form has gone completely away. The check boxes is your house on the market or not with whom, they're still there. But there's no language now that says you get your money back. It's just simply a disclosure to the seller that, yes, I have a house to sell. So I just have clients right now, have clients that came back around and they're real consumed with the idea they didn't want to buy before they sold. But then they've seen some houses that they kind of liked and even thought, gosh, what if we did put an offer in on it? It's been on the market 2 weeks. It hadn't flowed, zipped up from somebody picking it up. Do you think that even if they turn us down, we could just try a contingency share? We just try it. It's not even an option anymore. You understand? They qualify to buy without selling anyway. So don't even check the box and expose that. Like now you've exposed, you're going to try to sell a house. Well, we don't need to expose that. You just make the offer, see if it'll give you enough time that you feel comfortable, get your house on the market. Because why am I going to expose something that they qualify not to do, just to make them feel better? Yeah, I have a house to sell when it doesn't protect anything. It protects none of the monies.
So you're saying even if that's the case, doesn't say anything?
If your people qualify
Right.
to buy without selling, you're.
Only if they
it's the
qualify
same
to buy
thing.
without selling.
If you qualify to pay cash, you say you're cash. If you qualify, whatever your buyer can do, not what they will do.
Right.
That means my buyer doing due diligence. If they don't get a contract on their house, they're going back out, but they're going to lose their due diligence fee only, which is what they really want and want to be contingent. It's the same thing. You just meant for them, they get the earnest money back. Now they won't get the earnest money back if they let DD pass.
Right.
So now they're under pressure to make sure they've got a contract, and I warn them, you need to have a contract that can fall apart. So just understand that too. You're still going to be in a position you can lose those fees. You understand that? And I'm like, yep, we do. And then they want to make money, So it's just that you have to explain to them what their calculated risks are. Yeah, I was like, why, it kept telling me, why do you want to expose I got a contingency when it's never going to save you anything in the whole process? You're right.
If their home's not on the market, you're not making any progress anyway, because by the time you get this contract, take 2 to 3 days at the lowest rate to get that other house on the market, give it even 2 or 3 days to get in a contract, you're already 10 days behind this other deal. And they're not going to want a 60-day closing. And you don't know what kind of financing is going to come in.
40-day.
Like, gone are the days where you write a 60-day closing, give them time to sell this so they can buy this. The sellers don't have to do that anymore, so they're just not going to give us that time. So this is actually, I think, turned out to be a great thing, because now people feel like there's no, like at the end of that 5 o'clock at the end of due diligence, it's either you're in and you're going to buy 2 houses and you're going to risk it yourself, or you're out. But we're no longer waiting until the 11th hour to see if it's all going to come together. And you've got those domino closings that can really stress you out. I really have enjoyed it. It's been short. It's only been about a month, maybe, since these changes took place. So, so on this one, we're going to say that the buyer does not have another property to sell. And let's scroll down to the property disclosure statements. Almost everything we do is going to have a disclosure with it, unless it's new construction. I can't really think of many other situations where you're not. So you're almost always going to say that, yes, we have a copy of those. Now again, I like to just fill in my blanks and make sure that there's nothing left blank. Almost always the owner has owned the home for at least a year, but does anybody know why we have to check that? When we had a down market, we had a lot of people buying homes and selling at the table. They would close and close again, which is really how a lot of the lenders got bad rep for selling mortgages, right? Because they would go to the table, close at 200, 2 hours later, close at 250 on the same property. So there was some kind of scary stuff going on. And the way they tried to start tracking it is they have us put in here whether it's been on with this owner for 1 year or more than 1 year. If it's less than a year, you can bet that lender is double checking to check that person out to make sure that it's not some red flag, either person in their system or a property that's been flipped and is considerably selling over value. They're looking for people that are trying to take cash out and then walk away from the property. So it's just a way for them to kind of watch for those types of scams. And then lead-based paints, if you have it, I can't say I've come across that as being an issue many times. There are tests for it if you guys want to do it. I kind of get a little bit silly with my clients and I'm like, well, unless you're going to chew on the woodwork, I don't think we need to spend $600 on a lead-based test. Or if you're going to paint over it, like what is the purpose of the test is what I would ask them. Because if you don't want any house with lead-based paint, then we'll just look at homes built 1979 or newer. But if they're going to be downtown, it's frequently going to be an issue. You really need to dig into why it's an issue, because just living in a house with that is not going to be a health risk, right? Same thing with asbestos. I've had people test it, test the floors, test the ceiling, test to what end, right? What is your end goal? Do you have to have an older home? Why are we messing with something that is so expensive? Generally, the best way to do with asbestos is to encapsulate it anyway. So we don't want anybody drilling through holes or breaking up the vinyl. We just want to cover it, conceal it, like wrap it up so that it's not getting friable, airborne, and causing problems. Which isn't even in the contract, but I guess I digressed a little bit. You guys know?
No, I was just gonna say, I had one person, I think working with Meredith fairly recently, I can't tell you the exact, but one person ever did a lead-based paint test.
Me too.
And 20 years. But one person is insisting very recently, and the irony was a couple of companies that used to do it years ago are all in business because nobody does it. So that's why her point is, like, the house hasn't been painted since the 70s, you're probably gonna have a good painter come and paint it. If not, it's probably got 3 layers of paint on top of the whole thing already. The advice is not to strip it and remove it. The advice is just keep painting, like she was saying. And aside, I've run in ones like downtown that have this wavy old flat siding that's asbestos siding. It's just a 50s thing. You just see it and like, oh, just throw some more siding over top of it. You know, the advice is not go rip it out. It's going to give you cancer. So.
And then there's assessments. We don't come across them very often. Usually the seller and the agent are going to be the ones that disclose that. And that's where you would put it in here. But there's always the possibility that you find out later. You definitely want to keep on your checklist that someone on your team is calling the HOA, verifying the information. If you're in a hurry, you might not do that before you write the offer. But certainly during the due diligence, you want to make sure that that's covered. So I'm just going to put there are not any. And I usually put none known. The if any arise though, to be paid by seller. Excellent. And I'm pretty sure you're going to see this on every single contract because it really isn't that common.
And of course, all the attorneys do all the HOA legwork and find out sometimes some of these things.
Yeah, I feel like the only problem with waiting for the attorney, if you call the attorney and you book it right away, I find a lot of agents don't book the attorney right away. So then the title work's behind and then the HOA is coming in for the last second and you might be feeling like the attorney's not getting stuff done for you, but really you should be, as soon as you go under contract, that should be going to the attorney. You should be setting that up right then. They need that time too to prepare. This is where you would put the HOA information in, which again, I either get it from the MLS or from the agent. And then sometimes I'll leave it empty and have the listing agent side put it in if I don't know it.
They're pretty cooperative. Would you say they don't know the HOA information or could buy it?
Yeah, I've never had anybody. Honestly, it's not even required to be put in. It's really disclosure. It's up to us to make sure that we know what our buyers' hot buttons are, what's important to them. Certainly, I don't want to hide from them that there's a $100 monthly HOA fee, right? So we would have talked about that, made sure that was okay in their payment. This is a redundant location to make sure that everyone knows. So it doesn't have to go in there, but it's good practice.
I would say CHO, C
A lot of people do.
disclosures because they're already on the
Right,
disclosure.
a lot of people just do that. And then the deed, taxes, and fees, this is where you would put exactly how they want to have it recorded. So you might have like Charles H. Frenchie and Gina R. Tutu.
Hey, Kelly, FYI, your screen is not, it hasn't updated. It's still on the loan information. Just, I don't know if there's anything to do to change that, but just want to give you a heads up.
Any change?
No, I think we're still stuck. It's okay if you can't. We'll just have to talk about it. And okay.
Any change?
It's just saying Kelly DeBrosse has started screen sharing, so just take it probably a minute to update. Yeah, there we go. Thank you.
In multiple offer situation, I would never dream of asking for closing costs. That, I mean, you're just basically shooting yourself in the foot. You want to make it so clean and so easy and just as little mess as possible. So even if they want refrigerator, washer, and dryer, I'm going to say, if you don't get the house because of those, are you going to be upset? Because I would rather go in and add that to my love letter. We've made the best offer we can. We're confident in the price. We really love the refrigerator, washer, and dryer that you offered in the MLS listing, and we would love them to be included, but we did not write them in so that we looked the strongest. 9 times out of 10, they're going to give them to me anyway, right? But I've given them the option now. They can sell them and make it a few $100s extra. I don't want an appliance keeping my buyer's contract from looking like the best. And that's again why I use the spreadsheet with my sellers, right? Because one person might want the washer, one person wants all 3, one person doesn't want anything. And that's going to affect their decision on some level if the prices are really close.
Can you talk,
Yeah.
You talk it over with your client prior to, like, hey, I know it's included and I know you want it, but let's don't put it in there and make it cleaner and stronger.
Yes. Yes.
Kelly, do you put in a home letter only in multiple offer situations or every offer?
I only do it with multiple offers. I actually only do it with multiple offers. Yeah, what?
I think that's a lot of letters.
Yeah, no, I only do it with multiple offer situations. And I can't say that every buyer is somebody that I feel like that's going to be powerful on. Certainly a young family, it seems to really do a lot, especially if it's a family selling the house. You tend to get some feedback from the listing agent on how emotional the seller is, right? Just on a few things they say, you can kind of key in whether it's important to them. If it's important to them, you can bet I'm writing a really gushy letter.
I want multiple offers.
And I also attach it as a PDF. It's all one. So when they send that out, that seller's getting everything. I do not want to have them withhold it, which I withhold it as a listing agent. I will not show them your love letter. Not gonna do it. I want them to look at the numbers and make a decision. I know exactly what you're doing. I'm gonna do it to you, but you are not doing it to me.
Because we almost.
You withhold it? Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Now, if it's close and I think that it's going to make a difference to my seller, then I'll finally be like, you know, they did send a little letter and this is what they said, and I'll forward it to you. But I don't do it in the beginning because I want them to look at it as analytically as possible. I had a client one time that the neighbor was like, oh, you know, this person really likes the house. I talked to them. They've been looking forever. All these reasons, right? But the offer was $5,000 less. I'm like, well, you're telling me that a stranger, just because your neighbor wants to have them as a neighbor, they like them a lot, a stranger, you're going to cut a $5,000 off. I've got this other one right here. Like, my job is to bring you the most money, and you were going to tell me you're not going to take it. That's insane. So after that happened the first time, nope, no more love letters.
Did they take $5,000 less?
I finally got them to do what I wanted them to do, but it was a struggle. It was a struggle. To this day, I still cannot fathom somebody being willing to take $5,000 less just because of a nice comment or two. That boggles my mind.
So you just put everything on one PDF.
I do. Yeah.
I have one agent write in a little addendums section, buyer's purchase.
Buyer letter, yeah.
So that if the seller, if I sent every offer in full, I will say, like, when I got 10, 12 offers, I give my sellers a summary. Offer A, and know how I, or 1, 2, 3, the way I keep them straight is I'll say, you know, Agent Diana, these terms, Agent Joe, these terms, Agent Sue, these terms. And so then I'm like, clearly these two are the best, let's talk about them. Then they're not pointing over all their names, looking on Facebook, doing all this BS that has nothing to do with evaluating what's the best offer, right?
So home warranty section. Again, back to the multiple offers. First of all, I wouldn't ask for a home warranty in a multiple offer, not ever. I wouldn't even put the buyer may obtain one, because I'll just tell them, if you want one, we'll buy one at closing. You can still have it on the closing, but let's not put it in the offer. Let's not make it messy. All I want them to see is your great price, your great letter, your great closing date, your great due diligence. That's it. That's all I want them to see. I want them to be excited about that and think everything else is just going to be easy because we made it easy in the beginning. So we're going to say no home warranty. We're getting really short on time, and there's something I wanted to say about if anyone's ever had a situation where the parents weren't here and the kids saw the house, whoever wasn't here, they wanted to go ahead and write the offer, but the parents might co-sign, like they just didn't have it all figured out, but they wanted to lock this house down. As long as they know that their due diligence is their only risk, you can write an offer with whatever name, like say the parent's name, and then to the side you can write and/or and assigns. And if you do that, you have a contract that's not have to be changed, but can change buyers. If I have a contract and I'm writing in the name of the buyer, instead of John Smith, I write John Smith and/or assigns, ASSIGN, whoever he assigns this contract to. So halfway through the process, if he's having trouble with his loan, he can assign the contract to his parents, get that co-borrower, and still close without having to make any contract changes. It's been years since I had to do this, but when I learned about it, it was just very kind of eye-opening. I never even knew that that could happen. So that's something that could solve some problems here and there if you're not really sure who to write it with, because they're still trying to figure out who the buyer's going to be in the family. Everybody knows to make sure to attach any of their documents by checking these little boxes, so I won't bother you with that. Sharon was saying under identify other addenda, this is where she's had people say see buyer letter. So you could add that right there. I've never done that, but it's definitely something you could do. All right. So that to me is the basics. Now, we talked a little bit about doing the love letter. I don't think we need to go into detail on that. I think the next thing is when you write your final email, you're sending me, the listing agent, that offer. It has to have the offer to purchase. It has to have the disclosures. It has to have their letter from the lender. So that's 4 attachments, right? It's got to have hopefully a love letter. So that's 5 attachments. I do not attach anything else. I want to make this so simple. Some people will attach the floor plans. They have, it's not necessary. None of that's necessary. Just realize that most top agents that are dealing with most of the listings, their personality type is driven, right? They want to see the highlights. They're in a hurry. Make it easy on them. Show them that you know how to communicate with them on their level. They're in a hurry. Don't call and be like, I just wanted to talk and see what you think. Don't do that. You're just going to frustrate them because they can't tell you anything, right? A good agent is not going to be able to tell you anything that you want. Maybe ask a few questions, but if it's not reciprocated right away where they want to talk to you and give you information, just be like, all right, great, we're going to get that to you right away. How would you like it? Email, text, whatever. Make sure that you are communicating with them on the level they want to be communicated with. And let them know that they're going to expect it and when they're going to expect it. An image of the due diligence check also needs to be attached. Technically, we're supposed to have the due diligence check in hand. I don't know if you guys realize that. It's been a long time since some of us took the class. Mm-hmm. At least have the image of the check attached to that initial offer. That's also very powerful. It brings them to life, right? It gives, yeah. I like write it out and send me a picture is what I always tell them. I want that attachment. I want them to see you're a real person. You live at this address. Here's your money. Like we are ready to give you this check. And then I think lastly, that due diligence check is technically supposed to be delivered within 24 hours. I'm super lax about that. I don't know if I'm the only listing agent that's lax about that. But do your best to get it to them right away. Their only recourse is to formally ask you in writing, give you another 24 hours to deliver it. So if you're running behind, just know that from the moment they tell you in writing, hey, I don't have this yet, you've got 24 hours before your contract could terminate. Does anybody have anything to add? This is not at all the notes that I made, so I could go another hour. I got a whole page of notes over here on my other screen that I haven't even had a chance to look at. Anyone?
I say on the deed, I put consult buyer. I don't actually put the name. And the reason I do that is sometimes people are unmarried couples that are getting married. or may not be getting married, you know? And I always tell them it's for you and the attorney to decide how you want the deed to be made. Do you want it to be made that one of you passes, the other one gets it, or it goes to your heirs, or what percentage maybe you would say one owns the other? So I just have in my boilerplate the sole buyer, because I want that to trigger the attorney when they get the contract to decide with them what they're doing. I have families buying investment properties, paying cash, and they're deciding who in the family put their names on it last minute. I personally don't stress about what's got to be on the deed, because again, if a parent all of a sudden realizes halfway through the deal, they're gonna be co-signers, well, now we gotta add them anyway. Like, to me, I would just let the attorney handle it. I just think that's an easy thing to do. I had one Keller Williams agent tell me it had to say, I said, oh, no, it does not. And just left it how I had it, because they think they have compliance departments that tell them exactly how they have to do things. Therefore, they can dictate to everybody else in the world how they have to do things. It's not true. You guys kind of have your own strengths on what you can do. I mean, obviously, if you just know it's just some single guy, he's just fine, and we think the pair, just put his name on there, how do you want your deed made? But I just don't like you to slow down and ask that. Do you need a middle or natural, you need it to be long, like, yeah, I just.
You know, it's funny that you mentioned that. I just had that happen on Friday. He's a couple that contacted me under contract, and we're moving them to Boston. And a few days before the closing, so they were not married. You know, that was a conversation between the attorney and them. And when we were at the person table, she went out and said to the attorney, I just want to make sure that there's something on the training, because unless we're not married, this is things that we can be. Okay, so yeah, that happens all the time.
Right. And sometimes these are private conversations, personal decisions, things that they don't want said out loud and you know, or even for whatever reason, I like people to be comfortable enough when they can tell me anything, like what happened, you know, their day or whatever.
Yeah.
But sometimes they have family trust that needs to go in, and they don't want to talk about that, because then they might think they're rich, and, you know, whatever.
Is there anybody in our Zoom meeting that has anything they want to add?
Yes, I do. Hi, my name is Karen. And you mentioned multiple offers and FHA. You know, FHA, VA being, you know, difficult when it comes to appraisal. I understand that's government-backed loan. Now, issue is the fact that, you know, the current market is multiple offers. And because of the historically low interest rates, there are a lot of first-time buyers getting in. FHA, VA that couldn't before. So I'm thinking about what you said, that, you know, in a multiple offer situation, it may not be the most attractive to present an FHA or VA, you know, offer. And I'm kind of like, oh, wow. Is there options? So, you know, how do you work with that?
Options, you know, sometimes a VA, that's not their only option, and you can maybe get them pre-qualified with the conventional and then talk to the listing agent. But for the most part, especially in the price range you're probably talking about for first-time home buyers, you're going to have a real tough time in a competing situation. You probably won't have any trouble if you're not competing. Yeah. But I think the thing is making sure the buyer understands that their loan is the only efficiency in whatever they're doing, and the only thing that might hold them back. But if there's nothing that they can do, I wouldn't make a huge deal out of it. I would just let them know that it's
right.
You might have somebody who's willing to pay over appraised value. They can still do it. The loan won't prevent them from paying extra. It's just
exactly.
Loans do not have that extra, and so that's why they're using the loan. So it depends on.
Yeah, you know, but VA, Kelly, because I was an originator before as a real estate agent, and VA, I mean, it's a government-backed loan, but it's a great loan. I mean, when I originated in California, I mean, Wells Fargo and Bank of America used to thank me for those loans. I mean, they thanked me for the loans, and it was incredible.
Yeah, we've done a lot of them. It's just harder to do them in a seller market.
Okay. All right.
It's less about us telling you not to do it, and more about us making sure you understand why you might be losing offers, right? We want to make sure you understand why a seller would have gone with another offer, even if you had the same price But if you're going to go with an FHA or VA, I cannot stress enough, push your due diligence up. Make your due diligence date short. Go with whatever closing date the seller wants. Those are your other 3 ways to please the seller. And you're gonna have to utilize them because your loan adds a little risk. But for all you know, it could be a VA loan, an FHA loan, and another VA loan. You don't know
Okay.
what your competition is, but I think you do at least have to acknowledge the difficulties with the loan types.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else have anything?
Hi, this is Tanya. I have a question.
Well, I guess that's it for today. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
I'm gonna go ahead and shut down the Zoom.
All right.
All right.